it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we have a big week ahead. We are talking all about stress management. We're getting into the psychology of stress, maximizing stress, the body keep score, the types of chronic stress, and interpersonal and socialization of stress and how we can get out of it. I'm really excited for you to explore these topics this week. So if you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe so that you can get all of the great topics. Thank you so much and enjoy. Hi, it's Jennifer Evans and we're talking about burnout today. Burnout is when stress gets so intense and compounded that we actually have physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. We really don't have any ability to really act in life. We feel just completely depleted, and that's because the neurotransmitters dopamine and serotonin, they're losing connectivity, so you're not able to pull like you once did. Your amygdala is in overdrive, so that primitive brain and that connecting to the emotion and all of your past is now creeping up, and it is just constantly on a reel in your present. And then that prefrontal cortex is not able to function. You can't have those leadership qualities because you can't make those action-oriented decisions. You were making reactionary decisions. All of this is happening when we are burning out. So let's figure out, how do we not do that, and how do we prevent from even getting there? More than likely, if you aren't burned out now, you have been burned out at some point in time. Anytime procrastination comes in, anytime that we are using work to replace or avoid other things in our lives, burnout is just like, it's like a phone call away, I promise you. It is right on the horizon. And so we want to be sure that we have the balance in our lives so that we don't get into these traps. It can be really, really difficult. And I think with today's culture, we're more likely to have performance trauma than ever before. And you know, I know my grandparents did, and they grew up in the Depression. Said we had very long generations in our family line, but they would say, you know, that I walked to school uphill both ways in the snow, you know, like, and for them that was performance, and that got passed down to their kids, and that got passed down to their kids' kids, and so on. And now with social media and people making money off of social media, the need for external validation is connected to performance and low productivity or low purpose, high productivity is even more apparent these days. And so that's really a key recipe for burnout. So being able to have a division between your personal and professional life is very, very important. And when you don't, boundaries are a slippery slope. You give for one little type of boundary, you find some porous, and all the negative energy will come in. If it's weak for one thing, it's weak for everything. And you have a porous boundary, it will break and snap, and it's a very slippery slope. You let one thing in and everything comes in. So having rigid boundaries between your personal and professional life is imperative. And it can feel unattainable, especially young professionals. I can remember how difficult it was after grad school to feel like how do you make friends? Like, how do you make friends in like your mid to late 20s when you're in a new town and you're there for work and you're trying to find boundaries, but you also like don't know anybody, and you spend a lot of time at work, and all of your like sense of self is connected to your job, because we've been trained since kindergarten to say like, what grade are you in? I am known as what grade I am. And it just, then what are you studying? Like, the language that we have is all surrounded by performance, which is why it's so entangled with performance trauma. That's why it's so hard to have a personal and professional life. It's because they're so entangled, and that's why it's so important for you to define yourself outside of those perceived expectations, the killer of joy. And so how can you do this? How do you set those boundaries so that you can have some work-life balance, and to find a work self, a professional self, and a personal self? Try to find small boundaries that are rigid, that you're not willing to give up on. Times of work, like once 5 o'clock hits, I'm out. For me, I always share this. I know I share it. For me, I have a very clear, I've been working from home since 2014, 10 years. And since then, I do it every day, and I don't care what the weather is. I don't care. As soon as I'm done with work, I make a very clear exit to get in my car, roll down the window, and get away from my house. And so when I come back, I can come back to my home and not my workspace. And it's a very important thing to do, that as you are done with work, that you find a clear boundary that says, I am done with this, and I will only purposely engage with it. I will not mindlessly engage with it outside of my confined hours. And continue to assess, like, am I living within my boundaries? Am I not? Did I crush my boundaries? I do this all the time, especially around the holidays, especially in summertime when people are not wanting to book as much. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll do a Saturday morning for you, or I'll do a later appointment because I'm still getting my 30 hours in that I want. So I'm still part-time. I'm gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. And I start to crush, like, oh, well, they really want this. And I start to lose a part of myself to provide for my clients. And so it is important, because it's such a slippery slope. You say yes to something that is not a part of your definitive boundaries, it will slide very, very quickly down the hill. I promise you, personal experience, it will happen. So being very mindful and keeping clear tracking of your intentions is a very important part to being able to maintain those clear boundaries and finding your professional and your personal life, and making sure they are very, very separate, that they do not overlap. And how we can do this is, for success habits, is to start off small. Atomic habits are really important. Just notice what your pattern is. No shame in the game. Notice what your patterns and routines are. Find one thing that you can do to kind of stack on top of that habit, of whatever your routine is. Prioritize rest. Say that this is what you need, that you need this time to rest and relax and not feel like you have to constantly perform. And reflect and adjust. Remember, pivoting is the key to success, whether you're starting your own business or you are just trying to climb the corporate ladder. Pivoting is the key to success. And then finding a recovery protocol for that rest and those pivots is a really important way, so that you have a pattern and predictability, so you're not creating more stress with your rest. You're finding balance, back to that metronome. It's all about a metronome. We get stuck in these pendulums and we don't even know it, and it's like, woo, woo. Find your metronome. Find where that metronome is. Where's your predictability? What is your consistency in life? And is it serving you, or is it working against you? So recognize the signs of when you are getting burned out. People who have high performance, low value, and I have a whole archetype. If you go on my blog, click on the link in my video description, scroll down, you'll see the archetypes of value I talked about in the Financial Wellness Week. We have people pleasers, we have imposter syndrome, and then we have overworking, undervalued performers, high performers, undervalue, and all three of those kind of work together. And what they'll find is they burn out very, very quickly. So they need to know when to start saying no, because they're not going to say no a lot. So they need to know when to start saying no and when is it okay to say no, because if you don't say no, you will get trampled. People will keep asking more of you, and so it's important to set those boundaries. Schedule time for breaks. I love Pomodoro technique because it gives you more time to have for self-care, and it schedules that time for you. So go look up Pomodoro technique. And then find your active recovery. So active recovery can be passive. Recovery can be passive or active. So passive is you're just kind of sitting there like, Active says, okay, like I ran yesterday or I did legs yesterday, so I'm not going to do legs today. I may do arms, and I may use my legs, but I'm using them passively. Or instead of running and sprinting, I'm actually just going to do a light jog. I'm going to pull my rate of perceived effort down to like a 4, and I'm just going to kind of allow the lactic acid to flow, but I'm not going to just stop, because that's how we get, not Charlie horses, but basically Charlie horses, knots in our muscles. And so keeping that flow is important. Again, not the pendulum, the metronome. And leverage your social support, making sure that you are using your time to have your personal and your work. Some people get really angry. They're like, all they do is personalize, and all I'm trying to do is socialize, and all I'm trying to do is get my job done. And then you have people like, all she does is work so hard, and she needs to have fun. It's all about balance and marrying those personalities of how you approach work and how you approach life. And boundaries are the saving grace of life and is necessary in life. So know your shape and how you want to occupy and fully occupy your shape. Anxiety, trauma, low self-worth keeps us very, very tight. And so we really want to be open and really fully occupying our space. So we communicate proactively, we clarify our priorities, we use technology wisely, and we learn to say no. And when we are clearly and consistently sharing what our values are and living amongst our values, people know what our values are, and they're approaching us based on our values. What a concept, right? Like if you keep saying, I love dogs, I love dogs, I love dogs, I love dogs, people are going to naturally be like, oh my God, did you see this dog? It's the cutest dog ever. Or hey, there's this stranded dog, I thought of you. Whatever it is that you like, whatever your value is, just keep it in the forefront of your mind. Keep it going. Live for those values. People will see it and they will come to you with your values. Mirrored effect is a very beautiful thing. And when we have burnout, we see that there's a connection with success. We see that we can't really function and we are just depleting our value. We are depleting our value. Remember, when we seek a sense of perceived control, we are actually creating chaos. And burnout is doing that. If you are overworking at a job, you are screwing everything up, and those people that company does not care. It will never give you the value back that you have lost for yourself. So take a moment, take a deep breath, find your valid data points and shift. Find your pivot away from overworking. Find who you are again as a person and slowly set boundaries. If you get fired, it's the best day of your life. I promise you. There is a disclaimer on this that these are just things that I am saying. Don't use them fully. You have to know what you have, but I guarantee you, you are in a place where you are undervalued and you are cycling in a negative cycle. And if you want to get out of that, I do have a link in the video description for a free wellness insight, 15 minutes with me to talk about your situation and how we can build a plan together. I am Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Thank you so much.